Hi, I'm Derek Curtin with the Curtin Group, working with RCR Wireless today. We're hosted here at Norwest Venture Partners, and I'm speaking with Tim McCarthy from Atheros, the maker of Wi-Fi chips, and we're talking about some trends for Mobile World Congress. Could you tell me a little bit about what you saw in Barcelona last week?
Sure, thanks, Derek. We saw two trends of interest. First of all, the wireless carriers now openly embracing the use of Wi-Fi in mobile handsets, whereas a few short years ago they were actively opposed to it. And secondly, the large proliferation of location technology in mobile handsets.
So if the carriers are starting to embrace mobile Wi-Fi inside of their mobile handsets, what is it that's driven their change of heart, do you think?
Well, I think the introduction of the iPhone and other advanced handsets have absolutely changed consumer behavior. The insatiable appetite for more and more mobile data is outpacing the carriers' ability to expand their networks to keep up. So now the carriers see Wi-Fi as a way to offload data traffic and maintain a high quality of experience on their networks at the same time.
So I heard a lot of talk also from the show about carriers trying to improve their networks, improve backhaul, but you're saying that one of the ways they can solve their problem would also be to move traffic simply off of the cellular network. Is that right?
Exactly. The spectrum that Wi-Fi enjoys is freely available, so it's an easy way for users to get high-performance data without stretching the networks.
And you also mentioned that you saw a trend towards location services. Could you tell me a bit more about what you saw in Barcelona around LBS?
Yeah, the location applications that are in handsets seem to be becoming much more front and center mainstream feature. For example, Nokia just offered pedestrian navigation for free to all of its customers. I see more and more examples of handsets where location applications are primary features and not secondary. Location has been available for a few years in cell phones, but it wasn't always well integrated into the applications, and the performance was sometimes lacking. I think now location has become a mainstream feature.
But what is it about location and Wi-Fi that have allowed these functions to be embedded more in the phones and to work more in a mobile context? How is it now any different than it was a few years ago?
Well, both the Wi-Fi and location have some things in common. For a mobile handset, the demands for small size, high performance, and low power consumption are extreme. All three of them are very difficult to meet. So both Wi-Fi chips and GPS location chips have pushed the limits of all three of those dimensions in recent years to the point where they really do work very well in mobile handsets.
Now, I did understand with respect to Wi-Fi that it's been rumored to consume a lot of power, and that's why it doesn't work in a mobile context. What have you done at Atheros you have Wi-Fi chips that you're putting into phones. What have you done to enhance their power consumption?
Well, really two things. Our latest AR6003 mobile Wi-Fi chip raises the bar on throughput at 85 megabits per second, actual TCP/IP throughput. Now you can get the data that you need from the handset to the network in no time at all. So that reduces the need to burn power. And even though we've increased the speed of our Wi-Fi, we've reduced the power consumption by 20% in our latest chip.
So Atheros is known as a company that has a history in providing Wi-Fi to laptop computers. What's the full range of devices to which you provide Wi-Fi chips? Is it now growing well beyond laptops?
Yes, we're a full-service Wi-Fi provider. We provide Wi-Fi chips for mobile, fixed, and portable applications. So we have Wi-Fi chips that are specifically used in portable products like mobile handsets, e-readers, portable media players. We have fixed Wi-Fi chips that are for use in access points in the ceiling. And we have a full line of Wi-Fi chips for desktop computers, laptop computers, printers, Blu-ray players, etc.
So it's a bit of a surprise to me to hear that you're now so deeply into GPS. Could you explain a little bit how Atheros did it acquire, did it research? How did you get into the GPS space, and what do you do with respect to those chips?
So the connectivity features are converging into single chips to make them smaller and more cost efficient. So 2 years ago, Atheros acquired a GPS company called UNAV, and they've incorporated UNAV's capabilities into Atheros' capabilities. So our first products in the GPS arena are targeted at the P&D segment, and we sell to customers such as Mytech, Mio, Magellan, TomTom, Garmin, etc. And we've had some good success winning design sockets in those top OEMs.
So when you said you combine them into a system on a chip, you basically add multiple radio functions onto one chip. Does that also contribute? I mean, obviously, it's going to make it smaller. Does it also contribute to the other low power aspects and other aspects you said make it really work in a mobile context?
Yeah, that's right. You can make it smaller. You can make it save power. And in the case of combining Wi-Fi with GPS, there's also the interesting feature enhancement of the Wi-Fi can provide location inside buildings, and the GPS can provide location outside of buildings.
So that's a question I'll throw up to you is how does Wi-Fi provide location? Historically, it's just been a connectivity solution.
Because there's so many Wi-Fi access points, if you can just identify the location of the access point, you know where the user is to within just a few 50 or 100 meters or so.
So is there somewhere a big database of all these access point identifiers, SSIDs, and their location, and you can use that to kind of determine where you are?
Yeah, there's quite a few, actually. The biggest of them are a company called Skyhook Wireless. Mm-hmm. Maintains a big database, and Google has started to provide that as well.
Interesting. All right, so let's so that's kind of what you saw out of the Mobile World Congress show, and how Atheros ties into these growing trends, and that certainly seems to be promising. Could you tell us a little bit about the company's history, where it started, when it started, and your historical strengths and your sectors you've served?
Okay, so Atheros was founded in 1998. And we are a fabless semiconductor company. That means we don't have our own foundry. We design semiconductor ICs. And our specialty is digital communications technology. So we make a full line of digital communications technology, integrated circuit chips for Wi-Fi, Ethernet, Bluetooth, GPS. And now with the acquisition of Intellon, we also are in the power line carrier digital communications business.
Wow. And so in your core area where you're setting all these chip functions from what handsets are getting combined, who are your main competitors and who are you running up against?
Well, we compete with other digital communications specialists such as Broadcom and Marvell and Texas Instruments and many other smaller companies.
And could you give me an idea of the size of Atheros?
Atheros last year had revenues of $524 million. That was a record year for us.
Great. And where are you guys based?
We're based in Santa Clara, California.
So Wi-Fi 802.11n is changing the speeds of the networks and such. Do you design N into your chips for the mobile use or not?
Oh, okay, I understand. The big benefit of 802.11n is it's faster. It supports both bands, 2.5 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Mm-hmm. And in the 5 gigahertz band, you can actually get 85 megabits per second of actual TCP/IP throughput with our latest AR6003 chip, which is fast enough for a high-definition video, jitter-free multimedia experience.
Do you see the phone as something that would display that video, or the phone as something that would have the video stored in it and display it out to a TV screen or something like that?
Oh, good question. Certainly, the displaying is easier because the ecosystems to do that are better. But people continue to try to make the phone the center of storage for all multimedia and then connect that to other devices as well.
I guess that we're seeing that with the Microsoft, their new phone that they've announced, for example, has got a built-in Zune player. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the iPhone has an iPod built into it, so it is kind of becoming the center of people's lives. What do you see going forward for Atheros? And you mentioned the trends at this year's conference. What's up for the next year, and maybe what are you going to see next year out of your company?
Well, I think the convergence of all of these digital communications technologies is going to continue and to accelerate. So we see hybrid systems that combine power line carrier in the home with Wi-Fi access points. So the power line is backhauling for the Wi-Fi routers. And we see hybrid systems where GPS and Wi-Fi work better together. And those are just two small examples of how all of these different systems have to be kind of integrated into a whole.
Tim, it seems like even just the short 10-minute interview we had, one of the trends I picked up from the conversation is integration, additional functions being put together. Is that something that's very, very timely right now, or is that just going to keep continuing on and on and on?
I think it continue on and on and on. Right now, in a typical smartphone, you're carrying more processing and communications power than was available to scientists 20 years ago on the biggest mainframe computers. And there doesn't seem to be any end of people's appetite for that. It seems like wherever you are, you want to be able to consume all the multimedia that is out there that you might be interested in seeing.
So safe to say all these radios help us with ubiquitous connectivity, and that Theris is playing a part in making that happen, right?
Yeah, we hope so.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for chatting with us here at RCR Wireless, and I hope to see you at next year's Mobile World Congress and around the Silicon Valley.
Thanks, Derek.
Great.